gentlemen, it's my privilege to introduce our next presenter this afternoon, Corporal John Limbert, Royal Australian Engineers. Corporal John Limbert is a plant operator currently posted to the School of Military Engineering. In 2018, Corporal Limbert was nominated for the 2018 Forces Commander Royal Australian Engineer Soldier of the Year and received a commendation for distinguished service during his deployment on Op Okra in 2017. Corporal Limbert continuously displays an ability to effectively lead small teams in complex and uncertain environments. Corporal Limbert is passionate about inspiring soldiers through example. Today, he'll be giving us a contemporary leader's perspective on applying adaptive leadership and emotional intelligence in small teams. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in welcoming John to the stage.
Thank you. I'd just like you all to imagine that you're a soldier, you've just joined the army. You finished your IET training and you're heading from Sydney up to Townsville. So you've got your pregnant wife in the car with you. She starts to get incredibly sick. You take her to the hospital. She's having an ectopic pregnancy. You go into work, she's not really ready, you don't know anyone in a new place, you're just posting in, and you talk to your leader there. And you tell him of the situation, what's happening, what's going on, and you ask for carers leave. And he looks at you and says, I can't really give you technically carers leave because technically you're not caring for your wife. The hospital is. Anyway, after a bit of to and froing, he ended up getting leave and to go and see his wife. I'm Corporal John Norman Limbert. I'm a plant operator, and I'm currently posted at the School of Military Engineering as a plant instructor. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about emotional intelligence and the human touch. Emotional intelligence can be viewed as the ability to be aware of your emotions and be in control of them, whilst also understanding the emotions of the others around you and positively influencing them. The human touch can be viewed as someone who is personable and friendly and treats people in a positive and caring manner. Today, what I'm going to do with you is share with you some stories of mine and some friends of mine as well, people that I've talked to in the army and their experiences. And then I'm going to talk about those experiences and the emotional intelligence involved with them and the cause and effect. Then I'll move on to speaking about where we are or where I think we are as an army and then where the army thinks they are. And I'll take you through that soldier's perspective. From there, then I'll challenge you and I'll also tell you how I think we can move forward with EQ and the human touch in army. So some of the abilities we look at in EQ and the human touch is empathy, the ability to positively influence people, active listening, humility, observation skills, the ability to contextualise and being self-aware. So a friend of mine told me this story from his IET training. He was on a pack march and one of the guys in his platoon, he was slowing down a fair bit. And he kept continually slowing down and his leader, the person who was in charge of that pack march, was trying to give him some encouragement to get him going on. But then that encouragement grew to frustration. And then he started to get quite negative towards this soldier. And he said to this soldier, "You're weak just like your mother." Well, his mother had cancer, and this leader of his knew quite well that he did. His mother actually ended up passing away soon after that. So I'd like you to think about those two situations. They're both negative examples or examples of poor emotional intelligence, and we'll think about what the leaders did. So in those moments, in that first instance, what the leader did is place process ahead of the person. They looked at the person in front of them and then they focused on process, not the person. The technicality of leave. I really don't think that matters when we've got a person sitting in front of us. The second example, the person there, the leader, didn't understand their emotions and then lost control. They weren't able to control their emotions and they understood already what that person was going through, yet they said those comments anyway. And we think about that That is not having the ability to contextualise. It is not showing empathy towards someone in their situation. And the effects of those, so that soldier that was posted to Townsville, he put in his 166 to transfer because he couldn't discharge yet. So he wanted to post it out, and then ended up discharging. And then that other soldier, he did the same thing too, ended up discharging. Now that's the individual effects. What are the effects on the group? Well, of course, the effects on the group are similar. So the group sees the way someone else is treated by that leader, and what would that person expect if they were in that same situation to happen to them? Of course, they're going to expect to be treated that exact same way. Another story I'll share with you. So coming back from Hamel or Talisman, large exercise, and this is quite a similar story that I've gotten from people. It's a personal experience that I've had myself. So you've worked hard in the build-up, you've worked bloody hard when you've been outfield, and then you come back and you have a lot of stuff to do, cleaning up, getting everything ready. You've already been away from your family from a long period of time, and now you're kept back at work for time constraints. You get checked, everything gets looked over. And what happens is, you get held back even later, and then possibly throughout the week and then into the weekends. Another story I'd like to share with you. So this was from a leader of mine that I had in 2015. And the way this leader approached our work group was quite different to the ones that I've just explained to you before. A more pragmatic approach and a personable approach. It was that leader's intent to make sure that they knew everyone personally, knew their names, and knew something about them. And it came time for us to do a 4.5-month project. And it was quite a long project. And of course, people who were away on courses, we had limited personnel within our work group. We were told that we had to work longer hours to achieve the mission. However, there was pushback from our leader. Said that no, these guys won't be working longer hours. They're already a small team. They've got families they want to go home to. It's a 4.5-month project. I'm not going to subject them to that. However, anyway, because of the rapport that had been built before, and the fact that we saw that we had a leader that cared for us so much and that put us first, we stayed back and we worked those extra hours. And we actually beat the deadline. Now, what I want to focus on is that first one, and there's something in that phenomenon called reason-based choice. And so that reason-based choice can either be positive or negative, and that's that ability to influence, and that's the attitude that the leader brings. So whenever they're checking something over, whenever they're coming into a situation, that positive attitude, that reason-based choice, they'll be looking for positive things that have happened, and then there'll be a positive outcome. When we look at the other side, that negative side, there's that reason-based choice, negativity, looking to deny something. And that was what happened in that first story. And that happens on many occasions, looking to say no, looking to deny. Not looking to say yes, looking for positive things, looking for positive outcomes. What has actually been achieved? Anyway, so those work environments where they don't have that positive influence, that positive reason-based choice, in those work environments grows and festers an extremely negative morale and attitude, and they lead to certain things which I'll explain later on. But on the other side, we look at that positive outcome from that second story I spoke to you about, where even though we had our leader fight and say, that's not acceptable, I'm not placing my people under those pressures, under those time constraints, I'm not making them work the extra hours when it's not really suitable anyway, putting people before process and yield, we still did it just because of that relationship that was built and that rapport that we had for our leader. So the outcome was still the same. Rather than bringing that negative and that positive. So that positive came and we still had the same outcome. Another story I'd like to speak to you about. So when I first joined the army, so I was driving a vehicle, I was very new. I pulled out of the vehicle park and I hit the vehicle next to mine. And obviously I'd seen the reaction of when people have made mistakes, and I expected what was to come. You know, we think of that typical word, beasting, and I knew that was going to happen. And I saw the look on the faces of all the other sappers, and that's what I expected to face. And it didn't come. So my leader came out, you know, and said to me, "Hey mate, it's all right, you know, just go sit down, these things happen." Now following from that, I have another story to share with you. So when I was a Lance Corporal in 2016, one of my soldiers smashed the window on a dozer door. It was an accident, these things happen. But anyway, he was pretty down for certain reasons, which I will explain. But right then when he did that, his head dropped and he thought he was going to be in trouble. And I told him, "Hey mate, it's all right, you know, go to the side office, sit down, relax." So from that first story I told you, what I want to pull out of that is positive influence. And that positive influence, or rather influencing people positive, has a huge effect. Huge effect on the individual at that time, and then in learning for the future. So what we can see from that is the way that that positive effect that my leader had on myself, I then took that forward to act better and act in a different way when I faced that same situation. The empathy that was shown to me in a situation where I'd made a mistake, I showed that same empathy. There is a better way to treat people and a better way to act. So when I was in Iraq in 2017, I had to train soldiers on front-end loader and dozer. So I had a 2-week training course package that I delivered. These soldiers had come down from Mosul, trained them for 2 weeks, and they were going straight back up. I had a translator that helped me do this. It was a pretty hard situation because I had to gain their trust and I had to get them to listen to me. I had to build a relationship, and quite quickly. I had 2 weeks to make these guys believe that I valued them and that I wanted to deliver to them the best training. Otherwise, they were just going to detach and not listen to me. And so from things I'd learnt before, one of the most important things, building relationships, I thought, how could I do it? I'll learn their names. And that was really easy, 16 guys, Arabic names to learn. Anyway, I had a couple of techniques that I used, writing their names on the board in English and then in Arabic. They would mark their name every time they drove. I would look at one pair, who'd marked his name. They were always in pairs, and then I'd learn that guy's name and learn his name to his face, and then every time I would see those two together, then I'd look at the board and learn the other guy's name as well. So I only had to learn one name and then look at the other name on the board. It took me 2 days to learn all their names. But the value of the person, that you know their name, is extremely high than when you don't. The trust that you build, the relationship that you have with someone when you make that connection. Another thing I did with them as well, so because it was very hot, so we were training early in the mornings, got there at 6, went through to 12, and we had a breakfast come out at 8 a.m. Now, I'd already eaten because I was eating over at the base where we went over and trained at their base. And they invited me to sit down with them. And this was a pivotal moment in my training because it's really when I became a part of them, and we had such an emotional connection, and we really just strengthened that relationship. And so I sat down with them and ate. And this is an important lesson I learnt from another commander in Papua New Guinea, or another leader, sorry. He would always sit with the guys at meal times, always talk to them, ask them about their lives. And because it's at that time when we're sitting down, we're eating, we just talk about anything. We're so vulnerable. And then when we have really nice personal conversations, and that is extremely important in emotional intelligence and that positive outcome. Because once we have that relationship with people, once we have that rapport, what we're trying to do, the mission, we will have success. Because people want to be there. Right, so all of these stories that I've talked to you about, so they're happening today. They're happening right now. The good and the bad. That's what's happening in defence, from my perspective as a soldier. So what's emotional intelligence? It's understanding our emotions and being in control of them. It's also understanding other people's emotions and then influencing them positively. And the human touch, it's just being human. It's just treating people personable, like they matter, like they're real. So the four, I know I showed you those skills before, and they're the skills I find important, but the four fundamentals for emotional intelligence is being self-aware, being socially aware, building relationships, and having empathy. So we think back to those experiences that I just talked to you about, being self-aware. So the very first two, both those commanders were not self-aware. They weren't aware of their actions and their emotions and how that made the other person feel. They were detached. They weren't open to their emotions, and they were not open to the emotions of the other person. From that, there was not a positive outcome. You think about being socially aware, understanding how those actions affect the group. And so we saw in that experience where I had that 4.5-month project, where the social awareness of that leader was so high, she understood what everyone was going through. She made good decisions. She was very personable with everyone. The outcome from that is that people wanted to work for that leader. That we had a very highly positive workforce that year. Determined, collaborative, everyone wanted to be there. Building relationships. So that is key. We cannot work together if we don't build relationships. One of the core values is teamwork, and to work as a team, we need to have relationships with each other. And that's learning things about each other, talking to each other, breaking down those barriers. Emotional intelligence and the human touch, being human, just being people, because that's what we are. And then having empathy, understanding other people's situations. Because if you haven't been in a bad situation before, life is definitely going to throw one at you, and you're going to want to be shown that empathy that maybe you did or did not show to someone else. But the most important of these four is being self-aware, because it starts with us. So we just have to, next time anyone's in a situation with someone else, just take a step back, look at your emotions. Understand your emotions and understand how they're affecting those around you. Right, so in Army, people are our greatest resource. And one of the Chief of Army's pillars is people. It was at the centre. And he views people as our competitive advantage. Without the people, the Army wouldn't work. That makes us better than everyone else because we have that strength of people in our Army. The stories that I've just told you, some, yes, say that we care about people, others don't. I don't feel that it fully relates. To an extent it does, but then to an extent I don't think so. Why? Because I believe the typical Army mentality at the time, in some commanders' case, doesn't support emotional intelligence, doesn't support the human touch, it doesn't support people. Because we're so time-driven, we're so task-driven. The focus is on process and yield, it's not on people. The mantra of Army first, Army's needs first. I think Army's needs are people, and I think seeing people at the epicentre, most would agree. Meeting people's needs is meeting Army's needs. Army needs people. If people's needs are met, Army's needs are going to be met. That's the way I see it. I think it's different when we look at that barracks environment, field environment, and then operational environment. And I think that's where there's a lot of trouble with this. Of course, there's quite a blunt message. If we need to get from A to B, we have to do this by this certain time. And on operations, of course, that's true. However, in that barracks environment, is it really? I mean, are those 30 or whatever non-techs that need to be completed that exact day, do they have to be done? I mean, yeah, I can see you laughing, sir, but, you know, they are real things, because if these events keep continually happening and happening, what it does is it breeds negativity into that environment. What it does is it causes there to be a work group that isn't collaborative, that doesn't want to work together. And without those things, we're not going to achieve our mission. Stories that I've told do support that we care about people, and then some don't. So I think some don't. Why not? I don't believe we're fostering it. I don't believe we're fostering emotional intelligence. I don't believe we're teaching people emotional intelligence. I believe that the focus is on those hard skills, that work, what we need to do, our job specific. I don't see the focus being on the soft skills. You know, the talking to people, understanding, contextualising people's issues. I see that the emphasis isn't on the person, it's on the job. And I'm not saying that we should shift all the emphasis off the job, but we should definitely include people in that training. We obviously have good leaders, and we obviously have good leaders that are human and that do have emotional intelligence. The examples I spoke to you about where they did. I mean, the presenters that spoke to you today, those military, I believe that they have high emotional intelligence. Everyone that's here is here for a reason. And I think they care about Army and care about people. I think you all do. So we do have it. Some don't. And I think because people aren't fostering it. But how do some of us have it at the moment? Well, it's through situations where we see, it's through those situations where we see the cause and effect of good leadership, where we see the way people are treated, and we want to be treated that way. But another attitude as well that is still bringing us down is that it happened to me, so it's happening to them. And that's an attitude I believe that needs to be stopped as well. We have good informal mentoring. I myself have a few people that I take my problems to, that I talk to, a few leaders that I have a lot of respect for that have high emotional intelligence, and I always pass situations by them. Maybe that's informal, and that's my choice to do that. However, again, it's not taught. So there's causes and effect of poor EQ. So low morale, the team isn't going to work together, absenteeism, and then people are going to leave. High turnover rates. Now, from the recent Engineer Corps conference that I was a part of, that was one of our problems as a Corps. We're experiencing those high turnover rates. Not just that, I think, not just in the Engineer Corps, I think it might be a problem throughout Army, throughout ADF. And I've spoken to many of my peers, not just in the engineers, but around, and it seems to be that similar case, that low morale, there's absenteeism, and then there's people leaving when the individual does not feel cared about, or when they see other people that aren't cared for, and their situations aren't contextualised by their leaders, they don't care about them, so they will go somewhere else. But the effects of high EQ, that positive workplace, people want to be there. People will work together. People will be determined to achieve that mission. And we're going to have people staying around. I mean, I want people to stay Army. I just don't want people to leave because they get unhappy and think, oh, well. So what do I think we need to do? I think we need to teach. I think we need to develop. And then I think we need to measure. How do we teach? I don't have all the answers, but quite possibly we could incorporate it on our promotion courses, our subject courses. Theoretical-based training, maybe even small syndicate group activities. I think there is definitely scope to include it and to understand, and then also have professional guest speakers come in and talk about it as well. Develop. Professional development, the Army does that a lot. Not so much in the junior ranks. However, I think we can develop that skill in our unit level, and I would like to see it be something that's expected and not just encouraged to do. Because this is important for our workplaces. It's important for people wanting to be there, to feel valued and to feel cared about. Because it does improve productivity and measure. I don't know how we're going to measure it on the whole as a defence force. It's probably more the Commandant's job. But myself as a junior NCO, I think that I could measure it in my section quite easily, that my guys are happy. Yep, they're working together. They can come to me with problems. We can solve things together, and we have a better understanding of each other. I think for me as a junior NCO, I can measure that success. I think everyone has to try and find out how they can measure it themselves. So I'll put the challenge to you before. Go out, next conversation you have, try to be more self-aware. Try also think about other ways that we can teach and we can develop emotional intelligence and the human touch in Army. Because that more collaborative workplace, that determination, that is what's going to see mission success. Now, I believe that this could be one way to help us move from good to great leadership in Army. Thank you.